I guess it's the criticism. I see it as really limited to microcredit. When you talk about microcredit, and people will come and borrow whatever small sums that they will borrow, then they will go try to do other businesses. And when they have calamities or things happening, they go back, into poverty and what have you. So there is some validity to the criticism. But when we talk about microfinance today, it's not just credit, extension. We're talking about savings that Beth referred to, because the poor is not just one who needs, to borrow. The poor also wants to have a place where they can securely put the $2 or $3 that they have. So you will take a place like Malawi, where we have over 400,000, clients today. The bulk of those are savings clients. The idea is that they will put their own monies in there, and over time they will have a lump sum. It could be $100, $150, $200. So that when something goes wrong, they can fall on it. Okay, so that's one dimension. The other dimension is that opportunity actually introduced the concept of micro-insurance. So for the poor, even when we help them and they have been successful, and then there is death in the family or there is sickness, they don't have anywhere to go. The little that they had, they spend covering poverty. So the concept of microinsurance was to come up with insurance policies tailored to the needs of the poor. So life, credit, health, agriculture, insurance policies. And that then does help that when a situation arises that would cause them to want to spend the little that they had, they don't have to spend it because the insurance policies will cover them. So I think if you go beyond the traditional microcredit concept, microfinance does make a huge difference, because in my country, the Congo, when we first opened after 3 months, we wanted some data. So we wanted to touch people who didn't have access to banking. Tell us, how are we doing? 71% of the people who had their first loan were putting foot in a banking hall for the first time, in Kinshasa, the capital of my country. So clearly, that doesn't say everything, is successful and fine dandy. There will always be issues, as is true with any business. But I think the industry has come a long way, in addressing some of those issues.
What role do you think government should play? Because obviously NGOs or business intervention is not sustainable in the very long term. So how do businesses get involved with governments, and what role should governments play?
I think the question was about what role governments should play.
Well, I think that we all want just stable, forward-thinking governments, for each of our countries. And if you are from one country and you care for the people in another country, just think about it. What's your ability really to work on the political system? It's not great. I mean, I'm not saying there's nothing, but that's the beauty of what we're doing, is we're working essentially groups of people at a time on an economic basis. And if you're growing the economic level in a country, not you, but the enterprise that's fostered by this, that can only help the country. So I view it as a companion, and hopefully there is some modeling that would make these difficult transitions from forms of government that clearly aren't working to forms that will work. But I feel like that question's out of my pay grade.
Well,
yeah, let me just try it. I am coming from a background of dictatorships. You know, I've been put in jail by a dictator. I've gone through coup d'etats and what have you. So if you ask me what role should government play, I would say as little as possible. But you know, clearly at the macro level, you know, we need infrastructure in our countries. We need stability, you know, in our countries. We need, when we are applying for those savings licenses and things like that, we need an agile, you know, government that will respond quickly. We need less bureaucracy. We need, if possible, that we do things above board, honestly, no, you know, needs for briberies and corruption, etc., etc. So government could have a role to play. However, when it comes to what we're doing, especially in the sectors that we are engaged in, I think David and Beth will agree, the little involvement with the government, you know, the better. Because we can then focus on what we are doing and without either being misinterpreted or inviting attention that would not be helpful to, if you wish, the cause that we are called, you know, to serve.
Yeah, just real quickly, as AT discussed, from a national level, infrastructure are the appropriate type of projects that are hard to do on a local level, but also ensuring the rule of law, property rights, things like that, have a lot to do with economic growth. On a local level, governments can be good partners. They can be innovation partners. On local infrastructure projects, we can bring capital, but we want to leverage local capital. We want to do innovation in schools. We want flexibility to do innovation in schools. So I think just as we think of public-private partnerships in this country in many realms, I think there are lots of opportunities to explore that, present good models, and change the system by showing good models.
And an example of that is, to relate to what both David and AT said, when you have an organization like Opportunity, which is worldwide, which is global, we have the ability to see and gather interested donations to serve. So DRC is an example. Most of the funding for that came from US donors, but recently a lot of fundings come from the UK, from the government, from DFID, which has matched grants. And so if we didn't have our governments providing these funds, but then if we also didn't have an organization that was looking to collect them all, to funnel them in that direction, it wouldn't happen. So.
We welcome that, since there were no strings attached.
This is kind of a follow-up to the question I was asked before by Tim. What do you see as like the exciting new ideas and initiatives that are happening right now in development? So as you mentioned, microfinance is no longer confined to just the traditional microcredit associations. There's also savings and insurance institutions. What do you see as the reach of these kind of newer institutions? Are they effective, and is there anything else outside of that?
Well, I think we all have an answer for that. One answer I would give is the really exciting opportunities from technology. So you may have heard of what's happening in Kenya with mobile money and M-Pesa, which is a payment system through cell phones. It's interesting, that is terribly widespread in Kenya. It's not as widespread in other countries, and what they are figuring out is there's as you all know, the Facebook effect, really works when X% or more of your friends are on there, and when Y% are not, it's not as good. So Opportunity is working on mobile products, and it's really exciting. So I think the use of technology to leapfrog against other infrastructure non-developments, in a country where there's a total of 200 miles of roads, but you still have cell phones, I mean, that can help a lot. So technology is something, is one of my first answers.
I think the great untapped energy that's sitting in the pews of the churches of America is the next big innovation of sorts. Certainly technology is how you execute, but I think the pastors in churches today, mission leaders in churches today do not know how to engage and utilize the business personnel that are sitting in the pews. And to me, that's the huge untapped resource. These are people that want to give back. They've got great skill sets. They've got margin. They've got capacity. And if you put them in the right environment, coach them well, I think they can change the world, move the needle of poverty. And I think if you don't get those guys off the pews, the change is going to be slow and incremental.
Yeah, I agree with both of those and would add another component, which is the empowerment of local NGOs. I've just come through, my wife and I are now involved with a couple of missionaries. Just 2 Americans. They were originally from my country, from the Congo, but they are American citizens now, but decided to go back to the Congo. They are working in Eastern Congo, where you have all of those atrocities, being committed, and women being violated. More than 5 million people have been killed there, or having died of disease and hunger, etc. So they've put themselves in harm's way. And at the beginning, it was trying to help women who had been violated to be reintegrated in society.